What's up, guys? Welcome to this episode of the G Team podcast. The G Team is a group of young people dedicated to
providing people with the knowledge to make the most of their life,
sharing practical ways to maximize productivity,
and offering support to those who need it to create a more fulfilled life.
My name is Peter.
And I'm Olu.
And we're your hosts for this podcast.
Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy listening.
Welcome to another episode of the G Team podcast. I'm Olutomi Masaku, and I'm here with my good friend Harry Brooks. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about education, about the value of education, and the key question today is university worth 9k a year? So Harry, do you want to just quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Harry. I in Olutomi for a long time, and now he's doing his masters, and I'm a uni dropout, so it'll be interesting, some different opinions here.
Yeah, so we'll just get straight to it. Like, what do you think, Rosie? What about university being 9k? Do you reckon that's the right price? Is it worth it?
Well, like anything that any sort of large question like that, the truth is always somewhere in the middle, and it's always going to be the case that some courses are probably worth well more than £9 a year, and there's plenty that aren't going to be worth anywhere near that. So I think the main issue is that they all cost the same. Your medicine degree from Cambridge is going to cost the same as your art history degree from Lincoln. It's so you've got this huge range of courses and their value and your job prospects after university, but one price fits all, which I don't think is really right.
Yeah, exactly. And then obviously it comes with so many issues. Fair enough, like you might be learning certain skills whilst you're there, but then you see people graduating with a crazy amount of debt, not just from tuition fees, but then there's also your maintenance loan, and everything sort of stacks up, and it's hard to sort of quantify whether it's worth it. Like a few years down the line, are you investing in a way to allow yourself to earn more money in the future? So like, I've got a couple of stats. It says like the average graduate from a UK university graduates with 44,000 worth of student debt, 44k. And if you compare that to what most people's salaries are when they immediately leave, it doesn't sound like a lot. But further down the line, and this is like something that I just found out, it says that you can earn 100 million more whilst you're working than your counterparts that might not have gone to university. So when you subtract that 500,000 from the 44, it doesn't seem too significant, does it?
Yeah, you're definitely left with a net gain there, and I think one of the difficulties is a lot of the skills people learn at university and what they're taught isn't directly transferable to the job that they're later, the career they later choose. And you can't really blame universities and you can't blame students for that either. You've got to look at, why are these businesses so set on having every one of their employees having a degree when in reality what they've learned at university isn't directly related to the job that they're going to do. They're sort of proving that they're and it makes sense. It's like any form of education. They're proving that they're capable of doing something difficult, and they're capable of learning, and they're capable of operating at this level. But I'm not convinced that is the most efficient way to get people into doing jobs and being good at them on day one and moving forward their career that way.
I definitely agree with you there. Like, just from my own personal experience at university, a lot of it kind of felt like, I'm just checking some boxes, or I'm just jumping through some hoops, and then at the end of all these boxes checked and all these hoops I've jumped through, I'm going to get this degree, and that's just like, it's going to be my ticket to getting a good job. But it doesn't feel like I've done too much tangible work. There's not something that like revising for all these exams. It's cool, fair enough. I'm gonna have my fun throughout the semester, do my revision in the last couple of weeks, do all right in my exams, get my degree, and then not remember a lot of that knowledge later on. And that's just kind of how the system works, like you said. And you mentioned, that sort of the idea of preparing yourself for work, for working life, and like how it's actually going to be when you're in there. And I think it's important that people sort of understand that there's other options. I think, you know, I don't know what it was like, what you thought school was like in terms of presenting other options, but I think there's so many other things that you could do before you even consider university. Obviously, things like apprenticeships and, you know, even just taking some time out like you did, just to sort of gauge a little bit of a better idea of the things that you like, the things that you might want to do in the future. So like, for you, for example, what would you say like the key things that you might have learned like in your year out, and like do you think that was useful when you were making decisions like once you'd entered university?
Yeah, definitely. I think it sort of um, gave me an appreciation for life outside of education, because
Mhm.
if you do your A levels, you start school at 5 years old, you leave at 18. I think it's often a mistake for most people to go straight into education, because you don't really know what the alternatives are. You might not have even thought about a life outside of education at this point, because when you're at school, it feels like it's going to go on forever, and then suddenly you leave school, and if you don't go to university, then there's pressure on you to get a job and support yourself a little bit. And I
Mhm.
think taking some time out of the education system can definitely sort of ready you for it a bit more, and you can get a job, you can earn a bit of money, and you can decide, no, I want to do more education. I really like my studying. I want to do this. I want to do that. Or you can
Mhm.
say, no, I've made my own money this year. I've got some experience. Maybe you got a promotion, and I want to carry on.
Yeah, definitely. And like, would you say you definitely recommend, so after that like period where you've gone through those first years of education from like 5 to 18, would you say that it would be a good idea, that would you recommend to our listeners, like, if you have that opportunity to take some time out
Yeah,
and just learn a little bit more about life at large, say it's
yeah,
definitely worth
definitely.
doing?
If you're lucky enough to be able to do that, then I think it's really, really helpful. You'll just find out so much more. You'll know what sort of being an adult is like, because you go to university, and for the first time in your life, you've got this independence for a lot of
Mhm.
people. Um, but I feel like not being in university, you sort of see it, it's sort of a semi-independence, which I
Yeah.
guess is why a lot of people like it. But it's not. I don't think it's as helpful a bridge to the real world as people kind of think it is at the moment.
Mm. It's like you said, it's all these companies, like they have it as a requirement, and now it's almost like, if I don't do it, then what am I supposed to do? But like
Exactly.
if you just go back to the 9K specific question, I got some interesting stats in terms of like university. So when we talk about it being worth 9,000 pounds a year, like what does that really mean? That's the price of university in the UK. And if we compare it to other countries, like we're talking about, like the UK is probably one of the most um, expensive countries in terms of like getting yourself a university degree. The only country that sort of is way more expensive is the US, and that's with
Yeah.
private universities. After that, a lot of European countries are free. In fact, even in Scotland, I was talking about the UK. In Scotland, it's free for Scottish citizens. So it's like, where does this sort of value come from? And is it purely what you're learning, or is it, I mentioned for me, it was checking boxes and jumping through hoops, and you could
Yeah.
probably make an argument that when you're in that working environment, that is a lot of what you're actually doing. It just like proving that I can suck it up. I can just do what the admin's saying, and like
Yeah. So,
I don't know. What would you say? Like the real thing that you'd be learning is, and you know, we'll get on to what you've been doing like since you left university. And I want you to just like give a quick comparison between like your experience of learning new things in university, like that first sort of term, compared to like out of university, and like how much you'd say you've become educated.
well, I think I've definitely learnt more post university, but bear in mind I wasn't there for long. And I think one of the things I've learned is all of the things that have helped me post university, none of
Mhm.
them have been particularly academic skills. It might have been stuff I learned in education, like how to talk with people, how
Mhm.
to argue point, how to convince people, but none of it was directly stuff that I learned from the textbook. And I think we've all got that friend where, they might not have been super bright at school, but they're
Mhm.
so good with people and they're so charismatic, or they're so good with computers, something like that, where you just think you are going to be successful,
Mhm.
and it'll be independent of your academic success, because that is a minute part of what most jobs require now. If you're going to sell something, you've got to
Mhm.
be able to talk to people and flirt with them, chat.
Yeah, yeah.
um, but going back to what you said about the start about the UK having one of the highest university costs, I think historically it's probably because the UK it has been respected as one of the best places to get an education. It's
Mhm.
one of the UK's biggest exports is education, so it sort of makes sense that they're commanding that price for it. But then, like I said earlier, the issue is that institutions that don't really command that price are still charging that price.
Yeah, exactly like you said earlier. It's every single university, they're charging the same price, and like every course as well. And they're probably not delivering the same value to their students.
Mm.
Yeah, there's an issue there. And then we can go on to other things, like, for example, international students paying like 3 times as much as home students. Where's the extra value there? The Like in the past 10 years, the amount of Chinese students, international students in the UK universities, that's tripled. And I guess it comes down to what you just said, in the UK, you traditionally have some of like the best universities. If you look at, the world rankings, it's always going to be the UK and the US up there. So it does beg the question is how much of that is just sort of based off reputation and how much of that is based off
Mm.
the real value that's being added to these students that are sort of pushed through these institutions. But yeah.
I think like you're talking about Chinese students. I think culturally in China, there's
Hmm.
there's a real big respect for having an English education, and I
Yeah.
think probably in a lot of cases it sort of stops there. If you've got an English education, that's good,
Hmm.
and I suppose for a lot of the Chinese students, that's what they're paying for.
Hmm. Definitely, definitely. It's just like there's another sort of question that comes into mind. Um, Obviously, the price hasn't always been that okay in the UK. But about 10 years ago, it was more around like the 2, 3K level. Before that,
Mm.
like talking like 30 years ago, it was free. There's the questions around that. Is it affecting, students from sort of less privileged backgrounds, their access to university? Um, but surprisingly, well, I think it's due to the student loan sort of whole concept and everything. The amount of students that are going to university is increasing year on year. And although the raw number is increasing, unfortunately, there's still some differences. And it's like, should everyone sort of have the same sort of access to, to be able to go into higher education? Do you think it's like, it's fine that, you know, for example, like women are 35% more likely to go to university than men. So like there's just like there's these disparities. If you're coming from a less economically developed area within the UK, there's so much less likely to be able to get into higher education. Then we talked about like how now it's a requirement for jobs, for many jobs. So like how do you sort of give these people that might not have the best opportunity in life, how do you give them that opportunity to sort of improve their situation if there's just this limited access to higher education, which will then give them access to better jobs later on down the line?
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but the student loan system is good in the it's designed in a way. No one, it's not like America. No one leaves uni and they're crippled by their student loan. You only pay it off when you can afford to, and it's a small amount. But saying that, obviously, being at university is expensive. A lot of students don't have time to work, depending on their contact hours and stuff. So that can be more challenging for people who are from more challenging backgrounds. As you said, women are more, what we say, 35% more likely to go to
Yeah.
university.
Very much.
But you can see right from preschool to university, women just in general perform better at education. And there's been so many studies where they've tried to work out why that is, and they sort of gave up in the end and said, well, women must just be better at it. They must just be more intelligent at this level.
Yeah, it's also like, you know, could it be something to do with the system? Like, might just be better at, you know, like I said, you know, just checking the boxes, jumping through the hoops. Who knows? But anyway, I don't want to speak too much on something that I'm not not too much. But yeah, like it all comes down to this sort of value of education. You mentioned before, like, sort of soft skills that are kind of, you know, more relevant later on in life. Like, would you be able to like touch on that like a little bit more specifically? I know you mentioned, you know, people skills, but
Yeah,
like, how would you say that helped you?
obviously, while we were at school together, we did a lot of debate club together,
Yeah.
which was fun. And going forwards from that now, I really think that I deal with a lot of my customers now,
Mhm,
and you've really got to try and strike the right tone if you want to keep true to your brand. And
mhm.
that's something that really helped me, because I could identify what they wanted, and know what they wanted to hear from me and how they wanted to get it. And like, that's one of those soft skills that's been really useful to just be able to talk to people like that. And then right back to, so just a bit of context, I run an e-commerce store now, and that's, especially at the start, I had to do everything, and I really found myself, probably for the first time, using skills that I learned at school. I was making, you know, designing emails and stuff, and trying to be persuasive, and using things I learned in GCSE English and GCSE ICT. And that actually felt really, really rewarding, because I was like, I learned this stuff at school exactly like this, and I'm putting it into my work, and that felt really valuable.
Yeah.
But I'm not convinced, like we said earlier, that everything you learn at university, you will go off and
Mhm.
have that future experience with.
Yeah. I mean, I'm with you there. It's definitely not everything. Like, there's certain modules that I can't remember a thing about, if I'm being entirely honest. Those first year modules when you're not quite serious enough. But you could probably say the same thing about school. That there's plenty of stuff. You know, when you're in the music room and you're just pressing the DJ button, you're not really picking up the skills. But like, there's, I guess, like I was saying before, I'd still argue, you know, there are certain soft skills that you can still pick up. You know, learning how to communicate is something that a lot of people will just choose not to do. But like, I think that's kind of the beauty of university in a way. Like, you're put into this institution with access to so much information, so many resources. Like, some of them, like, they could be like world leaders in the field of like that they're in, and you don't necessarily have the same access to all these things when you're outside of university. So for me, like, that's kind of where the value is. It's in the opportunity, but the individual then has to make that decision. Like, am I gonna go out and do X, Y, Z? Like, am I gonna, you know, join these societies so I can meet new people, expand my network, make good like lifelong friends? Am I gonna, you know, after the lecture, am I just gonna rush out straight away, or am I gonna like speak with my lecturer, speak with my peers, like discuss what's been going on, like, you know, take into account the things that I found interesting, or there's so many examples of things where a lot of people will just um, avoid the opportunities and just like not take advantage of them. But for me, like that's where the value is. It's not necessarily, oh, I'm getting this so I can get a good job. But for me, it's it's the people that I've met, and that can be fellow students, or it can be academics like lecturers, for example.
Yeah. So I suppose what you're saying there is it's like a lot of things. You get out of it what you put in.
Mhm.
And I suppose if all the students are charged 9 grand a year at university,
Yeah,
and half of them just shoot off straight after the lecture and do the minimum, then and the others are taking all of the opportunities that are available to them. I suppose you're making university more valuable to yourself there, and
yeah,
you couldn't do the bare minimum at university and then complain about the cost of it because
exactly.
other people are on the same course as you and we're doing all of these extra things.
Mhm. Yeah. Obviously, you can say like a similar thing with loads of different situations, but it's just I've found anyway that like universities specifically, like I, I'm kind of in awe of the things that you get access to when you're a student. And for example, well, I'll just say this: it hurt when I graduated from Loughborough and they just deleted my student email. No more, no more of the discounts. Obviously, that's a minor thing, but the discounts it pained me. I can't go back to paying £10 a month for my Spotify. No way. But yeah, it was always just like the sheer access to information resources. For example, labs. Like if you're just like if you're not at university, like you're not going to get access to like some high tech like resources. For example, I know this is more to do with like sort of STEM subjects, and that's just where I've got experience from, like because I'm doing engineering. But you we're working like in some like the best fluid mechanics labs in the country. You get people that are researching with other academics all over the world. So it's always just interesting to see like what can you put in. And I think the main difference between uni and like school for me is when you're at school, the teachers are there, they're on your back, they're like, you need to get this done, you need to be doing this, you need to be doing that. And so you're gonna get a certain amount of value sort of guaranteed from that because you're forced to do things. But yeah, with uni, it's a lot more like you were saying, you get out what you put in. So the people that aren't taking advantage of the resources, they're paying for the people that are taking advantage.
Yeah, yeah. But I suppose that you were saying you STEM students, you get
Mhm.
access to these labs and stuff, but there are a lot of degrees, probably even at Loughborough as well, that
Mhm.
didn't actually require as much hands-on work. And
Yeah,
you were paying 9 grand to use some of the best labs in the country, and you've got students there who are paying 9 grand for pretty much just a PowerPoint education.
yeah. And you know what? You raise a good point, and we can even bring it back to last year, for example, COVID. For the vast majority of students in the country, like you said, you were getting a PowerPoint education. But not only that, I remember like the moment I realized like uni could potentially be a scam was when like I'd search on YouTube like the name of my module, and I'd see like a professor who's just like gone through the module basically like topic by topic and explained it in YouTube videos. And at that point, I would be getting literally the exact same education that I was like from the university, but from YouTube. Because during COVID, I didn't have access to the labs. I wasn't going in tutorials in person, and it raises a question. So same like by normal standards, university is worth 9,000. Like, where does that value go when you're sat at home in front of a computer, just watching videos on demand? It's pretty much like YouTube. I was asked the question before, like how much would you value like last year? I personally said like, oh, I'd cut it in half. Like that, this was just like the first thing that came to my mind. But then questions were asked like, what is the reason that you go? Like, what have you signed up for when you say that you want to go to university? And pretty much for everyone, it's the same thing, is to get that degree at the end. So it's like, how much does the delivery of the education actually matter? Like, it's a bit of it's a tough question to answer. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I suppose that asks the question: if all the information is already there online, are you just paying to sit the exam and
Yeah.
say you've been there? If you can get all of that learning done elsewhere, it does make it seem a little harsh if you're paying £9,000 to have someone else deliver it on a video.
Yeah, and I guess it's the proof. It's the it's certified that you have that knowledge. I guess that's the only real difference. My dad used to always say, for example, like if I were messing around too much in school, and like, the teachers don't know what I know. For example, they don't know, like, if I'm really good at maths, say like I'm an excellent mathematician, but I go into school and it's like, I don't want to do my exams. I don't want to do anything like this. Like, the teachers aren't going to know like how good I am. Same way, say you could have done all of the courses you want on mechanical engineering, do it all on like history, you could do it all on English literature, whatever. You can have that knowledge up here, but it's like, where is the proof? And like, I'm talking about proving it to employers, for example. And it's like, I guess that is literally just the value. That is it. And it's a shame that that's like the way the world works. But until you can like get a little device that shows someone's level, their education level, or their knowledge about a particular task or topic or subject, it's probably just going to be the only way to sort of prove that you have that knowledge. And like, I guess that's where the value comes into it.
Which is more of a systemic issue than one with universities themselves. Talking about how much it costs as well. I think I read earlier about they expect around 40% of people to not pay off their student loan. And that asks the question: those people from more disadvantaged backgrounds that perhaps couldn't afford to go to university, they've gone into work straight away. They're paying taxes straight away, and are they paying for the are they paying for the education of these other people?
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm not entirely sure where like SFE student financing gets their money from, but like, it's a good point. Like, if the loan's never repaid, I'll just like,
someone's paying it.
Yeah, someone's paying it, and then there's also the issue of interest as well. Like, the interest is on the loan. I'm just gonna like quickly talk through, like, people that haven't done their student financing application ever before. I find it so suspicious. You basically have to sign off saying they can change that loan like at any point in the future, can change the interest, they can change like the rates, everything. They can change like, the terms and conditions, and you just have to sign it off. So like, the whole sort of money issue there, I do find a bit strange. But like you said, someone else is going to be paying for it, who may not be like receiving the benefits of that loan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely interesting. But yeah, like, I'd say the main thing that I advise the people is to just not jump straight into it. Like, don't just do it because that's what everyone else is doing. Don't do it because like, that's what the teacher says you should do. Don't do it because it's what your parents say you should do. Like, it definitely has to be your decision. Because like we've already spoken about, it's a huge financial commitment. It's a huge commitment of time as well. 3 years at this age, like, we're still pretty young. We could be doing other things. But the main thing is to consider your options. Like, university schools won't always recommend the other options, but things like apprenticeships, even just like going abroad if you have the means to do so, picking up new skills. And a lot of companies do have opportunities for you to to go in like straight out of year 13 or year 11, and they'll actually pay for your degree. So it's good to like sort of look around at different opportunities. Make sure you're aware before
Definitely.
you jump into it.
If you were gonna spend £30,000 on anything else, aside from education, you'd shop around, you'd look for the best deal, you'd see exactly what you're going to get because it's a huge commitment. But I think definitely at age 18 as well, and the way it's presented to you, you don't really think of it like that. But if they've given you £30,000, then you might think, right, well, there's a way I could invest this that's maybe better than university. I could do, 31,000 pound courses online, and
definitely there's
obviously no one will finance that.
Yeah.
But when you've got like James Dyson, I think now he's got his own university, hasn't he?
Yeah, Dyson Institute of Technology.
Yeah, and he's training all of his own not graduates to be able to do his job. And I think in the future we're going to see a lot more of that. A lot more private companies are going to say, right, no, we're gonna pick these people and we're gonna educate them ourselves, because the problem with more and more people getting degrees is, free market dictates it's just going to dilute them. They get less and less valuable the more people that have them.
And then that might push you into doing something that I've done. You have to get the next level of the degree. So no, I'm joking. It wasn't a panic master, I promise you. It wasn't a panic. This was planned and thought out. But no, like you said, it sort of reduces the value of the original one, and just having that degree, and it can push certain people. And like, this is something that I see a lot. You're in university. It's not that it's easy, but it's comfortable, and like that is what leads a lot of people to go into panic masters. And then in turn, like, you're spending another year doing something you might not want to be doing, and you're increasing your debt at the same time. So it's just all these things that you have to take into consideration before you make that big commitment. But yeah, I was just wondering, Harry, I'm gonna sort of close it off here, but do you have any closing remarks? Do you have anything that you want to plug? I don't know. Happy.
But if any listeners have any rabbits, guinea pigs, or small animals, then Happy Hay is my my e-commerce store for hay and the like. But it's a bit niche. I don't think there's many university students that are nurturing their own pet rabbits in their halls.
And any closing remarks regarding the topic?
I think just be really considerate about the decisions you make, and don't rush into it. The world of work isn't that scary. You don't go to university if the only reason is you want to put it off, because don't get me wrong, you might get a job you don't enjoy straight away, but that's 3 years where you could be networking and looking to find something that you do really enjoy. And by the time that your friend leaves university, you might have gone through 2 or 3 jobs and actually found one you've really settled into and you're really enjoying and you're really climbing the ladder at it. So just be really considerate about your decisions, and don't just do things because it's the norm.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I absolutely second that. But yeah, we're going to leave it at that for today. But yeah, thanks for listening, and hopefully see you next time. Well, we won't see you, but hopefully you'll be listening. All right, take care.
Thanks for listening to the G Team podcast. You can catch more episodes on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more, where we try to build our lives one step at a time.